Okay, Mayor, we are now live on Facebook and starting our March 23rd, 2021 conference session. Tara, you want to do the Open Public Meetings Act?
Sure. Adequate notice of this meeting as required by the Open Public Meetings Act was provided through the posting, mailing, and filing of the annual notice of regularly scheduled meetings of the Town Council on December 11, 2020. The notice was on that date posted on the bulletin board in Municipal Building, provided to the Westfield Leader and the Star Ledger, and filed with the Clerk of the Town of Westfield.
Okay, so we are good to go. So let me, if you don't mind, Mayor, I'll start off. We have a Finance Policy Committee report on the budget, but we'll get back to that. We also have a Public Safety Committee meeting report. Let me go through the resolutions, most of which are tied to the budget introduction at the next meeting, but I'll just walk through them quickly. Under Finance Policy Committee, we have a resolution authorizing the CFO to draw a warrant for a refund for street opening cash bond. 1 second here, let me, there we go. Number 2, we have a resolution authorizing an award of contract for the pool concession. So this was after a public bid, we had this one bidder. It's the same concessionaire as last year, so we're very happy they're coming back, and they were very accommodating to us in a very difficult year last year. So it's very nice to award them a contract again as per their bid for 2021 season. 3 is a resolution authorizing the payment of body worn cameras. This is our 3rd year in the police department of the body worn cameras, and we'll talk more about this minorly in the budget. But this year we're obviously having to pay the full cost of the annual payment. We had 2 years, past 2 years, we've had some offsets by forfeiture funds and prosecutor's office. So we're seeing the full cost this year. Resolutions 4 through 10 are all tied to the budget. I'll read them off. We can talk about them briefly, but these are all things that are required to do on a budget introduction. And so the first is a resolution to defer the local school district tax. As you probably know by now, we are on a different fiscal year than the school, so we are collecting the money on different years. So we have to defer the half year we collect or don't collect in the calendar year. The number 5 is a resolution to authorize a 3-year average method in computing certain revenues in the 2021 swim pool utility budget. So again, we did apply to the state for these opportunities to do this. Luckily, we only needed to do it at the pool. And so we've allowed doing that in the budget this year for the pool. But again, we're on pace to have a very strong year there. So hopefully we won't even need to do that after this year, but we are taking advantage of that for the pool only in 2021. Number 6 is a resolution to adopt a temporary capital budget. In my 20 years as administrator here, this is the first time I've ever done this. And the reason we're doing it is because we're adopting our capital, or proposing to introduce and adopt the capital budget before we adopt a municipal budget. So because we're doing that, we have to do this temporary capital budget. Thank you, Scott Olson, for reminding us how to do that. But it's important. We'll talk more about that later too, why that's important. Number 7 is a resolution certifying compliance with the United States Equal Opportunity Commission's guidance. This is a annual item now that we do on budget introduction. The state will not look at your budget if you don't have this compliance mechanism in. So that's being done again, as it has been the past 2 years. Number 8 is resolution canceling a portion of the COVID-19 special emergency appropriation. Again, as I mentioned, so we did have an application to the state to be able to use special emergency appropriations if needed. Again, because we have a good budget in front of us, we'll see tonight, there was no need to use that for the town portion of the budget, meaning the municipal budget. The pool, we're still using part of it. 9 and 10 are just the resolutions we'll do tonight to introduce and approve the 2021 municipal budget and the 2021 special improvement district budget. So we'll go through those, and the resolution actually to approve the municipal budget is that long, legal size document that was attached that we see all the time. That's actually the resolution, the budget document. So those are the items under finance policy. We'll go through a lot more in a little bit with Linda and I, and of course with the annual PowerPoint presentation in the 8 o'clock meeting, but that's a lot of budget stuff today. Any questions on those items? Okay, so code view and town property, we have a couple things there. We have a resolution to approve peddler's license. We have a resolution to approve outdoor seating as per executive order number 150 and authorizing town clerk to issue licenses for the same. Just an important note on this. This is a similar resolution we did to last year. After the executive order came out, we're doing it again now before the outdoor season begins downtown with parklets and open Quimby and everything else like that, allowing for restaurants to continue to serve alcohol, the extended permit on the street as per the executive order. Number two, also waives the fee for sidewalk cafe permits for 2021 as we did in 2020. And gives Tara some direction on what her office needs to do, and the fire department some direction on what their office needs to do for enforcing these things downtown. But that process has already started. Tara's office has got the information out already. We're getting responses back from restaurants downtown, but it's good to have that as a blanket approval for the whole downtown for all the businesses that want to take advantage of that. So thank you, Tom, for drafting that. Under Public Works Committee, we have one resolution tonight, which is an important one. Resolution to award contract for the construction installation of ADA compliant curb ramps and drainage infrastructure. So this is, we started this in 2019, where we are awarding contracts for ADA compliant ramps in advance of paving, particularly in advance of utility company paving. And we'll get into more of this in our budget presentation, but you remember in 2019, we started a relationship with utility companies, particularly with Town Gas. That relationship went very well. We had a lot of roads paved. That turned into an ordinance requirement that the town council passed, which now requires utility companies to pave roads full length, full width, depending on how far they cut into the road. We are still responsible for the ADA compliant piece, which we're happy to be, we're the ones on the hook for compliance anyway. So tonight's award of contract is per Chris's bid that went out. We'll be able to get started on ADA compliant ramps as soon as next week. And then utility companies and town paving will follow after that. So it's a pretty important thing. And thanks, Chris, for getting that done quickly. So that's it for resolutions. We do have 4 ordinances on first reading tonight. First, again, some of them are, 2 of them are budget related. So the first one is an ordinance number 2210, an ordinance for calendar year 2021 to establish a cap bank as per NJSA 40A 4-45.14. This is an annual resolution, or annual ordinance that's required to be done for budget introduction. It establishes the cap bank. And again, we luckily, we always have a cap bank. We haven't had to dip into that for many, many years, which is great, but you're required to establish it in case in the future you need it. So that's a annual ordinance introduction and adoption that we do in connection with the budget. I'll skip 2 ordinances for a minute just to go through another budget related item. So special ordinance 2221, that's the bond ordinance to authorize the making various public improvements and the acquisition of new additional or replacement equipment and machinery, new communications and signal systems equipment, and new information technology equipment in, by, and for the town of Westfield and the county of Union, state of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $2,650,000 to pay the cost thereof, to make down payment, to authorize the issuance of bonds, to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds. A big mouthful there, but that's a big, another big ordinance tonight. That's what I said before. We're doing our capital budget earlier than ever. And that's for a couple of reasons. One, we want to get projects started and get them done sooner. Of course, we also know that Mr. McAloon is on his retirement phase right now. So we want to make sure we use his skills to the best of our ability before he leaves, so that we give him all the opportunity and authority to get the projects up and running and handing off to a new person, whoever that may be, coming in, so we don't have to go through the process, and a lot of that administrative work is done. And this, we'll talk more about it a little bit in the 8 o'clock meeting too. The main part of this budget is paving, as it always is, but we're going to talk more about how important it is, not only what we're doing, but the coordination and the planning and strategic planning we've been able to do now because of the road assessment program, because of our utility partnerships, the ordinance that requires them to pave, and how we're looking at the strategic planning of road paving going forward. So that's a big introduction tonight. And it's really important. So that's on first reading tonight. Back to the other 2 ordinances. General Ordinance 2211, an ordinance rescinding certain provisions of the town code for the town of Westfield. This is a request that came through the Covey and Town Property Committee from the Library Board of Trustees. There's a movement afoot being recommended by New Jersey American, or New Jersey Library Association to rescind the historical fine process and payments that you normally would pay for not returning things on time. There's other provisions that they have at their disposal, but many towns are doing this. And so Library Board of Trustees asked the town to rescind the portion that's in the town code, which is what this ordinance does. And that's on first reading tonight. Did I miss anything, Tom? That's
it, and it's also the American Library Association is recommending it as well.
good. Okay, so that's on first reading tonight. Also on first reading tonight, we have General Ordinance 2212, an ordinance requiring the licensing and registration of landscapers within the town of Westfield and making certain amendments to the Conservation Center regulations. So this is also from the Covey and Town Property Committee. There's been a lot of discussion on this the past many months. So this basically establishes a registration process and fee for any landscaper or tree company that works within the town of Westfield to annually register with the town for a small fee. And the reason we're doing this mostly is it's an education component for the town. It allows us to know who's working in town, but also allows us to provide every company that's working in town information about the town's rules and regulations that they need to follow, whether it be tree debris, whether it be when they can do certain things with tree companies, landscaping, hours of operation, you name it. So this is on first reading. Covey and Town Property Committee is recommending this to the council. And then once we have the second reading and adoption, we would then roll out a registration process through the Public Works office with Greg O'Neill and Rich Eubanks kind of taking the lead on rolling it out, registering and so forth. We do have some experience with this because, as it also says in the ordinance, we already have some registration fees in place for landscaping companies that want to register to be able to have access to the Conservation Center. This is a separate and distinct process from that, but Richie and Greg have a good relationship with many of the landscapers that use the center, so they'll be able to contact them right away when this is adopted to get them to register. So that's on first reading tonight as well. Did I miss anything, Mark Parmalee or Tom? I think big picture.
Hey, Jim, can I just ask, so isn't the one of the outcomes of this is because of related to storm debris and the fact that the landscapers were dumping their stuff when there were big storms, making it that much harder for us to collect debris? And it became, the longer it went, the worse the problem became. So I think part of this was the outcome, right, of trying to enable us to better facilitate storm debris pickup in the future.
And it's actually right there. Letting them know what the rules and regulations are, and then if there is violations, we can actually track them down and let them know that they need to go back and pick something up. That's definitely part of it.
Which is the problem, which we weren't able to do previously. So hopefully this could address our storm debris issues in terms of pickup for the future. So
good. So those are the four ordinances on first reading tonight. Again, two budget related, two from Covey and Town Property. Any questions on those? Lots of stuff. Okay. So let me go back. I think Linda, probably a good idea. I don't know if anyone has any questions they want to ask ahead of time, but I thought I might share the screen with the public and of course with the council in reference to the municipal budget snapshot that we shared with you guys, with everyone on the council on Friday. And kind of walk through that quickly with Linda and I, just to give us a summary of things. And again, we'll have a lot more detail in this come the 8 o'clock meeting and an annual PowerPoint presentation. But let me share my screen and let's see. Everyone see that? I'll try to enlarge it if I can.
That's like 4 months of work in one page, Jim.
I know. Oh, okay. Hold on. So I'll start off, Linda, real quick. But this is again, this is the municipal budget snapshot. There's a lot of detail, of course, as Linda said, that goes beyond one page. But it was a good way to give everyone a quick look. And I think it was important to add. We usually look at 2 years. We added 3 years this year because of the pandemic. We've had out 2 years this year and last year. We're feeling, the effects of the pandemic and the impacts on the budget. So 2019 was really the last year right now that we had what we'll call a normal year. So a couple of things to highlight, and I'll see if Linda have any things to add as well. But I think a couple of things are important here. So you see, obviously, the aggregate numbers broken down into pieces here: salary and wages, operating, debt service, reserve, uncollected taxes, deferred charges, statutory required expenses, and capital improvement. We discussed this for many years now. There's not a lot of discretionary money and discretionary opportunities in the budget. A lot of stuff is handed to us. But despite all that, in 2021, even though we're having another year, if you look here, total revenues, in 20, the revenues were down almost 1.2 million, and they're down again almost 300,000 in 2021. And we'll see a lot more detail of that in the PowerPoint. But that's significant. When you have revenues dropping and you have to you stay within a certain cap, and you have non-discretionary expenses handed to you, it makes it very difficult. Last year, as you remember, you see the numbers here. We took out some big numbers because we had the luxury of doing that. We had a lot of things built into our budget to save ourselves future debt service and so forth. But so critical thing about this one-page thing, I think, is revenue dropping for the second year in a row, which makes things very, very challenging. The levy cap obviously increasing, but even despite all that, we went through. We made a concerted effort, the finance committee and the department heads, keep costs down, and you'll see every category here. There's not one category above 2%, and that's pretty significant when you look at salary and wages. That's a tough one to keep at a low number when you have union contracts being settled. You're looking to do new things, overtime costs. There's lots of things embedded in there, but again, 1.6% roughly. Operating expenses 1.3%. Debt service down. And we can talk more about that in detail. Reserve uncollected taxes up. That's a standard increase. That's something we and only the town has to bear. Now schools and county do not have to bear that. Statutory required expenses only up 1.2%. A major driving factor here, we had a very good year in health insurance. Health insurance was down over $300,000 in 2021. So that was a huge help to us. Anyway, budget up 1.14%. Which is a very manageable number. You then look at revenue being down, and then despite all that, we're still able to achieve a tax rate being passed to the residents of less than 2%. In this case, 1.98. In a pandemic last year, you remember we were 1.95. It was a very big, important goal to get under 2%. And in a normal year, when you have revenues going up $1 million, you see what can be done in a year. That was a 0, and the year before that was 0.5%. And so revenues dropping is the major story and continues to be for 2021. Another key component here is just, this is the details of the budget, but the divider to get to a tax rate is the ratables. And I want to mention this for one reason. We had a very big increase in ratables in 2020 to 2021. What that is that's the property values in the town of Westfield. That's our assessor's office working very hard to make sure all the assessments are up to date, that they're captured properly, and that the property values of homes are managed properly. And again, to have a big increase in ratables helps us deliver a tax rate that is under 2%. So that can't be underscored enough, that it's really Neil Rubenstein, our new assessor. By the way, he's new, he's been here a year. So he jumped right in with both feet, literally, and he and his staff went out working with the town attorney's office on tax appeals, working with other departments, the tax collector's office, and really was able to have a nice, large ratable increase to help us produce that tax rate. So that's really part of the big story on the numbers. You see, obviously, there's 3 bullet points here. Again, I'll just summarize them. I'll pass off to Linda. Significant revenue declines continue. We mentioned that. There were some bright spots in 2020. We talked about those. Building department, which exceeded our expectations, conservation center permits, and revised fee schedules that the council adopted allowed for more fees being collected. We did have $700,000 of non-discretionary expenses handed to us, and yet our budget came in lower than that. And again, we mentioned before, every major category of expenses was less than 2%. And then again, surplus here, I think is a very important point. We'll talk more about that 8 o'clock meeting as well. But we always strategically use surplus for many, many years to try to manage revenue losses, expense increases, but also to manage the final tax rate. Not insignificantly, we are using surplus again as usual, but second year in a row now, we're reducing the amount of surplus to be used. And we're able to do that because of reduced expenses. And we're also able to do that because we want to make sure that we can serve as much surplus for future years and be able to handle anything else that's thrown to us. Hopefully it can't be much worse than it's been, but you just never know. So those are some of the big things. The one last thing to mention here is we did all get good news. Every town got good news. The American Rescue Plan was adopted. We are going to be in line for $2.9 million. That's going to come to every town in two pieces. We're going to get half that this year and half that next year. So we already know we're going to have a guarantee that we're going to be able to replenish revenue at least by 1.4 million and change in 2021 and in 2022. That will be used for revenue opportunities in 22 and 23. That's on top of whatever we normally would generate back, which is past couple of years has been $2 million and change. So we feel very strongly, the committee, when they're looking at this, looked at it, and of course this came in last minute, which is why we delayed our introduction 2 weeks ago. But we now have very good confidence that we're going to be able to replenish a lot of the stuff that's being used. And so there's even more confidence in what we actually are looking to generate here in the 2021 budget. So that's a quick overview. It's a mouthful. Linda, you want to chime in and give any 2 cents? Have I missed anything?
No, that was a really good summary, Jim. And I guess, I would just like to say that I think we're all very, very happy and proud of what we were all collectively able to accomplish in this budget, despite a lot of things that weren't expected in the form of the pandemic that continues. So the theme of the whole budget season this year was to continue to be really conservative about about expenditures, which hopefully is evidenced in the numbers that you're looking at here. Particularly if you look back to 2019, I think back then we were happy that we were keeping it, the overall increased expenditures below 2.5%. Now we're below 1.15%, even after having to cut a lot of expenses last year. So the surplus is holding up for us really well. I don't think we could expect any rainier a day than the year that we've experienced and are continuing to experience. And so we are going to be committing $3.795 million of surplus towards the budget this year, but it's still less than 40% of what we have. It will end up at 5.8%, and with the stimulus monies that will come in of 1.45, we already for sure know that we'll be above $7 million. And you'll see in the presentation later tonight, as we go through sort of the history on the surplus, that there's always things that rebound, particularly this year, which hopefully when we start to see court and parking revenues come back in, we could only anticipate a certain amount of revenues. We can't go above what we got last year, and hopefully we will be well above last year in actuality. So all of that additional revenue stream coming in gives us good confidence that we'll be able to rebuild surplus again by the end of the year. So I think the public should be happy about less than a 2% overall tax increase, a conservative use of surplus with still plenty to tide us through any other any continuing impacts of the pandemic or anything else that might get thrown at us in 2021. And I just really would like to thank Jim and Scott for all of their hard work, and the Finance Policy Committee, and frankly, every single department in town who took our request to cut back wherever they could very seriously this year. So we're happy. We think it really looks great. Hopefully you guys are equally pleased, and if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Linda, it's Mark. Thank you for the work on the budget, but I will say I think this is the largest increase in probably 7 to 8 years as far as a tax increase. Is that right?
Well, I can look, but I have it right here, Mark, so I can go back and take a look.
Are you saying
Um,
tax rate,
and-
Mark? Is that what you're referring to?
Correct,
The tax
So-
rate increase?
correct. What are we, the 1.9?
So Mark, I think it's helpful to give some context. So if we look at the last 4 years, that Linda's been chairing the finance committee,
David.
the
I
average,
asked-
the
I did
average
ask
tax
Lynn-
increase is 1.1%. The prior 4 years, the average tax increase was 2%. So I think you can't look at 1 year and sort of pull something out. You've got to look at the track record over the last 4 years and recognize we're in the middle of a pandemic with revenues going down, non-discretionary expenses going up. So yes, the tax increase is 2%. And the last time it was 2% was back in 2014, but it was also 2% in 2015. It was 1.7% in 2016, 1.4% in 2017. And remember, it was 0.5% in 2018 and flat in 2019. So I'd encourage the public to look at the trends and not look at one particular year.
All right, but this
mean, so
is the
Mark-
highest,
and
it is
Mark,
the
I'll just-
highest
Oh,
tax increase since 2014. Thank you.
okay.
And the surplus, Jim, if I'm reading this right, we're now under 6 million?
The,
5.8 million. When we get the stimulus money in, we'll be back over 7 million.
Okay, so
Plus what's regenerated. So Jim, how much was regenerated last year? 2.6 million?
last year was just about, just over 2.5. The year before that was 2 million. So we're averaging over 2 million a year the past 2 years.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you did, if conservatively you say 2 million plus the 1.4 we're going to get from the stimulus, we're pretty good shot at getting $3.4 million at least. And we have, to your question, Mark, 5.8 million and change in the bank that will be untouched for use in 2022.
So from 14.5 million, went down to 5.8. Okay.
Yeah, but again, Mark,
But Mark,
that's.
but hey, David, I'll jump in. So Mark, but we talk about this every year. We talked about it in all the finance policy committee meetings that you participated in with us over years. You can't compare the end of the year surplus number to the to the remaining balance
Right.
after we allocate monies toward the budget in any particular year. It's comparing apples and oranges. So if you want to go back, we can look at comparing apples and apples because that would be, we can look at that. But the reality is that we made a very specific call several years ago that $14.5 million of surplus was actually taking money out of people's pockets and just letting it sit, earning 0.75% interest.
I agree, but you
So
look
so
at it
we
the
would,
opposite
so we
way.
made a very specific decision to use surplus to invest back in the town and so that people could see a return on their investment much higher than a 0.75%.
Right, but you could look at it the opposite way. If we had more of a rainy day fund, we'd be able to supplement the tax increase similar to Union County's not doing a tax increase
Yeah.
again. That's 2 years in a row.
Yeah, because but Mark, it all really depends on how, which way you want to look at it. Union County was carrying over $100 million of surplus. Thank God they started using some of it.
Yeah, and
Linda,
I-
could I just add a few comments? So first of all, I want to thank and congratulate Jim and Scott and Linda. I've talked to several mayors around the state, and we've had lots of conversations about budget. I can tell you they would love to be in the position that we are in this year. And I mean, it's really incredible. I think the fact that, the extreme measures that we haven't been able to take, the surplus served as the rainy day fund as it was intended. And I've talked to others too about surplus, and it seems like best practice is between 12 and 18%. This puts us at 13%. 18% would be up about 7 or 8 million. I would argue anything above that, to Linda's point, would be irresponsible. So I have to say, there were many mayors would love to be sitting in my shoes right now looking at a budget like this, because I can promise you That is not what's happening in other places around the state. So I do want to congratulate Jim and Scott and Linda and David and Mark and Jim for all their work, because I think you have to have the context to appreciate. And Councilor Grippo, just to make your point, you said if we had more surplus, we would be able to offset the tax rate. Well, that's exactly what we did in 2018 and in 2019. It was specifically chosen to do that to mitigate any issues that might have been around the tax reevaluation. So I think we've used surplus as it's supposed to have been used in a very responsible way. And again, before long, we'll be in a matter of probably weeks, we'll be up over $7 million. So I think, and then just sitting pretty honestly for subsequent years and what we want to do. So I say I'm incredibly relieved and proud of this budget. So thank you all.
And just what we'll have, of course, in the PowerPoint presentation, there's a lot of detail on surplus, so we can talk about that as well. And, any other questions or thoughts about the budget? Okay, well, this it was a good snapshot. Again, there's a lot more to the snapshot than this, as Linda said. So the budget presentation, I'll stop sharing. The budget presentation tonight is a slight bit different. I only mention that because we do have about 4 or 5 slides in reference to the capital budget. And because we're doing it earlier than ever, we're going to talk about that as well tonight in the PowerPoint. I think it's exciting because you'll see we have some new things that about paving we can actually announce tonight as well, which is good, about using the road assessment program and how we're strategically managing that going forward. So that'll be some added slides. So a lot more discussion to come on the budget. Anyway, that's it for the agenda. Mike, you want to make your Public Safety Committee report? Sure.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jim. Yeah, so last week we discussed a lot around parking issues. But I think one thing that we really want to point out is a public safety issue that we discussed during the previous meeting. Actually, has to do with North Avenue and Elm Street intersection. And we know that the way that traffic light is set up and the way the intersection is offset makes it particularly challenging for pedestrians to make their way across. And so we thought we would go to the state and ask if something could be done, given that North Avenue is a state road, particularly around the timing of the green light for the cars going through from Elm Street, making that left turn from the North Avenue parking lot onto North Ave. That makes it particularly tricky for pedestrians. So lo and behold, the state came back with some very positive news, and so they're looking to not only change the timing, but also add some pedestrian heads to that traffic light system, which is fantastic. It's sort of a rather old system, but we're going to add some ped heads to that traffic light, and perhaps a no turn on red sign. So this is all on the state's expense too. So no Westfield tax dollars being spent here. So really happy to hear all of that. But we know this could be just an interim solution. We are looking at this particular intersection and area long term. And so things might be redesigned there in the future. But for now, this is what we can expect to change and to improve for our pedestrians crossing at this intersection, which is just great. It really is needed. One other thing I just want to mention, and it's something that we had brought up earlier, and I mean like last year earlier, the UCC cell tower we had heard was voted down by the Cranford Zoning Board last night. So that's actually really great news for our Ward 2 residents who live within proximity of this proposed location. And I'm really proud that our advocacy contributed to that decision. So we'll see how that goes going forward. But for now, that cell tower was voted down. And that's it for now.
And just to add to Mike, thank you, Mike. And the state was out at the intersection today at North and Elm. They were adding some things. Mr. McAloon and I already received a couple of observations from people who are looking. So we have some more things to consult with our traffic consultant on. But the good news is they're already there and they're making changes, and some of them are already in place today, which is great. So
That is great. Thank you.
it's great. Okay. Anyone else? Dawn.
Hi, I just want to bring a report from the Westfield Public Art Committee is looking to take some of their funds and memorialize the Rainbow Crosswalk in a thermoplastic technique. They've received a bid and Chris has received a bid to properly redo those crosswalks in time for the Open Quimby initiative. The crosswalk was in very bad shape when it was painted by the kids last year. So it was only meant to be a trial to see how it would work out. It's been very well received, and now they would like the council to approve them using some of their funds to properly have the Rainbow Crosswalk well installed in time for Open Quimby.
That's great.
Anyone have any comments on that, or?
That sounds great.
No, okay, good. So yeah, I know we have, and that's Dawn, if we do that, that's good. We're doing it's a one-off project, so it doesn't have to wait, and we can use Public Arts Commission funds for that. So I'll consult with Chris about the bid that's appropriate, and then we can get that scheduled. And Open Quimby is really 2 weeks away, so we can probably get it done quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if I could, Jim, I just wanted to start advertising a little bit for an event that the Westfield Mental Health Council is going to be organizing for Mental Health Awareness Month in May. It's going to be, so, our stigma-free, slogan in Westfield is compassion, acceptance, kindness, and empathy. That spells cake. So hopefully you'll be seeing our cake emblem, more and more frequently around town. But we're going to be organizing a cake crumb trail, so that families can, take a tour through town, see public art, as Councilwoman Mackey was just mentioning, visit the police station, visit the fire station. They can get some treats for, filling out their passport of, stops along the way. That'll include our memorials and, also teaching, families and the kids more about what compassion, acceptance, kindness, and empathy mean. So we're going to be trying to get the word out about that.
Great.
And Chief, I don't know whether Chief Badaloro, I need to fill you in on some of that too. So soon. You're going to play a big part. Your department's going to help us out on some things, just as a heads up. And I don't think Chief Tiller's here, but I'll fill him in on too.
Okay. All right, good. Thanks, Linda. It's now time for public comments. Anyone likes to raise your hand virtually? If you have any questions or comments for the council, you have 3 minutes, name and address. Can I ask anyone who wants to raise their hand virtually? We can call upon you. Anyone who's on would like to be heard? I see no hands yet. Okay, I don't think there's anyone in this meeting, Mayor, so you can close the public, we'll close the public hearing. And we will, unless there's anything else, the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all right, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
See everybody in 20 minutes.
Great.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks.